talk about here is effectively a practicum for success in architecture as a practice. Right? So that's the whole goal. The whole goal. The whole goal is how do we make architects successful all the time or 90% of the time? Not, here's another boring body of knowledge and standard for you to follow. So the ITABoK has nothing to do with here's how you do it every time, because there is no, the most common answer for an architect to any question is it depends, right? So there is no one size fits all. There is no microservices is good and so is bad, and that there is no mainframe is bad and and everything else is good. There's no TOGAF is bad or Agile is good or any of that stuff. None of that exists because there is a group of people in the world using that successfully right now. You just have to know when and how. So as enterprises have gotten more complicated, more importantly, as our problem space has gotten more complicated, thus has emerged this group of people, i.e. architects, that do a certain thing and most importantly, have a certain way of thinking, right? So we think in a very specific way and we have a certain set of skills. Now, for 15 years I've gone around the world to meet architects and I have found every one of them that's successful has exactly the same set of skills. 80% of them are all the same. There's about a 20% difference, and then there are some different types, right? And the different types account for that kind of 20% difference. So this is what we call the capability model, which is effectively the list of skills it takes to be an architect. It's super complicated, not all of which are important in every engagement. Nor do you have to have all of them in exactly the same level. But our answer to every problem in technology right now and in business is a people answer. How do you create people who are successful most of the time? So our answer at Iasa has not been let's invent a standard. That was the open group's answer. Everybody do it, TOGAF. Everybody do it, TOGAF, right? And if you're not doing TOGAF, then you're not doing architecture. That's become our hiring standard as well, and is roughly as successful as making the PMBOK a good hiring standard for project managers. It's a knowledge base, it's great, but here's the fundamentals of that. If I teach a person the Scrum method, does it make them a good programmer? There's nothing in Scrum that says program, right? It's a project management methodology. That's TOGAF for architecture. If I give you process, then it doesn't matter the idiot that I put in that process, they'll be an architect. We've said, no. Our answer is fundamentally different. It's a people answer. If you put a good architect in any process, they will be, in general, successful if success was possible at all. It kind of works this way. It's easy to think about. We only let a very small group of people actually cut other people with knives. You know why? Because they've practiced a lot, and they don't kill people very often, if not killing someone was possible. So the answer here is not microservices. The answer is not process, and the answer is most definitely not tools. The answer is, how do we create the next generation of good architects? Now, every single one of you has worked in an enterprise where you've got some good people and some bad people. But the bar right now is so low that we've got to raise it, and that's what ITABoK is. ITABoK is about how you take one or more groups of architects and make them successful most of the time. And it actually turns out to be really simple. It's not that complicated. Lots of variations, lots of standard people problems, but when you do it this way, you end up with roughly what the Agile Manifesto found, which is if you work with good programmers, you're probably going to get good programming. If you work with bad programmers, you're probably going to get bad programming or bad software. The engagement model says it is about organizing, process, artifacts, that stuff. We're going to talk about that real quick. But then the next part is the capability model and what an actual architecture represents. Now, believe it or not, nobody knows what a good architecture is right now. We have no idea. Ask yourself, we don't even know, look at it this way, we take one model that you're familiar with, outside of standardized models like UML. or standardized modeling languages like UML. What does a good retail store architecture look like visually? What should the colors be? Should it have dotted lines or straight lines? We don't know a visual communication language, and no two look alike. Just Google any of the architectural models. Capability map, they all look different. Customer journey, they all look different. Any architecture model you come up with, they all look different. And that's okay, except it's confusing, and it means we don't have our stuff together. Most of us think of an architecture as a design document. Put it differently, if I take a great engineer and a great architect, both have been successful in their respective fields, and they both write you a document that's called the architecture, but they don't put their names on it. It says the architecture for whatever retail system, healthcare system, new business process system, etc. And I put them in front of you. You will likely not know which one of those is the architecture. They'll look different, but you won't know which is which. Now, we've been able to answer what makes something an architecture, but the next problem is what makes something a good architecture? And does that even exist? So we're going to get into this notion that architecture is a profession, not a job. It is not something that you can tell a team. Have any of you been luckily titled the architect on, just randomly? Hey, I've decided you're the architect. That's a good feeling, isn't it? It's like, hey, I've decided you're going to do heart surgery today. Oh, gee, great. I'm going to kill the patient. Whee! All right. Architecture is about technology value, not delivery. Outcomes are the only thing that matter. Inputs do not. I don't care how you got there. I cannot judge a building's architecture until it's done. I can look at pictures, I can say I like it, but until I walk in the front door and experience the space and see it, I don't know. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. So architecture is anything that you can value after it's done. That's what the real stuff is. Good technology strategy is about how architects engage with the business. Meaning, most of you, as Angela said earlier, are a support function to a support function. I love that. It's sort of like being locked in the basement and being told to design the outside of the house. But I can't even see the outside of the house, much less design for it. So what we have to do is build an engagement model that builds credibility in our #1 value program, or #1 job, which is technology as business value. That engagement model is further complicated by a system of enterprises that is fundamentally chaotic. It's an ecosystem, not a well-defined process system, right? So this is just a picture of your sort of executive suite and what they're doing. Setting strategy, measuring goals, all of these wonderful things. The vast majority of your experience in architecture will likely have come at the solutioning level, whether we call it the enterprise level projects or a smaller, let's put an online store up, or let's launch an app, or that kind of thing. Happens in the mid-tier. This is where we think of the sort of PMO kind of activity, right? These are your agile teams or your waterfall teams for that matter. But the real change in an enterprise is actually below ground, right? 80% of change are minor feature changes, minor version changes on databases, minor changes in business processes, itty-bitty little processes that get kicked off, Excel spreadsheets, all of that stuff is changing every day. So just from the time you've been at the conference today, your company has fundamentally changed. And its ability to serve its customers has improved very incrementally or unimproved very incrementally, or both in different ways. We cannot and will not ever be able to control this. And the failure of enterprise architecture teams is because they try. Now, as we look at engagement, what we're going to find out is that politics matter. Perceived value is value, right? You have to look at an engagement model that's realistic. And if you have no credibility in this chaos with business people, then you have no credibility with anyone. And they will never listen to you. I don't care how good your strategy is. Go back to the basement, please. I like it down there too. I like to write code. Don't hear me, don't listen, don't hear that I'm not thrilled with technology. But fundamentally, to get out of the basement, you have to be able to build credibility with business people, not just technology people. Now, in all of these crazy life cycles, we measure these life cycles over different time frames, right? We look at a company, generally speaking, has one life cycle that's measured, and we'll just go with the most common, sort of largest company sizes, because that's where most architecture happens today. It's moving into smaller and smaller companies, but really most titled architecture happens in the enterprise. The enterprise has one life cycle, generally measured over an annual cycle, and they do that because of budget, right? However, change is happening every second. Now, agility would tell us we want to be able to get away from that. So far, we still run into the budgeting problems to get to true agility. Because true agility says we need to be able to change which direction we want to go at any time. We want to go, today we're an airline, but tomorrow we're going to be a bank. That's true agility. That's the utter agility. Like, we sold all our planes yesterday, now today we're going to be a bank. Never going to happen. But, well, I say it's never going to happen, but Amazon is exactly that. They went from a retail provider to the largest cloud provider in the world. Super weird, right? These fundamental shifts and offerings and repurposing our business in weird ways is happening more and more and more and more. Case in point, Volvo provided IT services to their competition for many, many years. Effectively, they helped their competition succeed. So, as I was saying, in this enterprise life cycle, we have to learn how to play the game. And the number one game is perceived business value, and the number two game is real business value. I only say it that way because as much as we'd like those to be opposite, the truth is we're all human and politics play a portion of everything we do. Most perceived business value is actually real in some way, but not normally as real as we think it is. It's not normally we put an online store up, made $6 billion more every day. It's normally our manufacturing throughput in plants in Mexico is now 2 days faster, which we know is good, unless we don't have anybody to buy them. Right, so there's complexity even in how we measure success of these life cycles. I want to come back to this slide. The single key to architect success in the ITABoK is take on fewer projects. Somehow you've got to convince your business that you are not the governance expert for every project that's going on in the enterprise. If you are still that, next year, your team is still not going to be perceived as valuable. The number one rule is a solution architect or any architect cannot handle more than somewhere around 3 projects and be proactive, and not all 3 of them can be large. If you're going to be value focused, you get to do 1 big project. To show credibility, you have to create business value that is attributed to you, not to your stakeholder. This is what Angel said, remember? You got to tell them what you told them, and then you got to tell them how what you told them made them so much money that they should let you tell them again. So, as we go through, and I do this quite regularly, sometimes I just play catch up, I talk to the slides, and then I go, oh yeah, I just talked about it. So one of the things I was talking, this is what I was just talking about. The average solution architect lifecycle is a gated lifecycle, and it is an utter failure every time. I can walk into an organization and generally within about 3 to 6 months tell you how soon they will fail, or whether they're on the right path. My number one smell test, are they using a gated solution architectural lifecycle? Because gated solution architectural lifecycles are exactly like Per was just saying about ESBs, which is we're going to control every decision. We're mind control. We're going to control every design decision you make. You have to check with me because I'm smart and you're dumb. If I said that to you, like actually came out and said that to you, you'd probably punch me in the face at some point, right?
Well, it would be kind of big.
Okay, so, well, I'm from Texas, so my general assumption is you'd punch me in the face and we'd have a beer, right? But still, I'm just trying to figure out what I look like. Okay, nice. Is that a bow?
Huh?
Is that a bow? Anyway, is that just my hair?
It's your hair.
Oh, okay. It's big enough, it needs a bow. But the gated life cycle is a way of telling solution delivery teams that they're done. It is an organizational principle that says, we're architects, so we're naturally smarter than you. Now what I said, the ITABoK fundamentally explains to you is that that is a lie. First of all, engineers don't make good architects. They don't have the ability to deal with uncertainty and in and around the business context to the degree that they can make bad engineering decisions that are good business decisions. And I'll tell you what, if I'm going to get something out to market that goes against my competition, I'm going to cut every corner I can. Because the faster I get that to market, regardless of the technical debt that I've taken on to get there, the more I stand a chance of owning that marketplace from a business perspective. So I have zero problem with you putting Sev 1 issues into production unless you've got the right Sev characteristics, which means it has actual business continuity impact. But a lot of the Sev 1 issues I see are things like, well, this portion of the UI doesn't work. So don't deploy that portion of the UI. It's not critical to us taking money from the customer. I have no problem with putting Sev issues or issues into production is what I'm saying. Because all I care about is business value. So as we go through, we know the gated life cycle. So let's talk about the agile life cycle. The number one principle that Agile claims, and this was tweeted here today, is working software is the only thing that matters. What if I told you that working software is that working software is bad for your company? If that software doesn't make money. Now that sounds normal. Oh, okay. I like to piss off technical audiences because we tend to think of working software as the point. But working software is roughly the same as buying airplanes. If I'm a bank, I may own an airplane for my executives or for, special clients. But I probably don't own a bunch of 747, 777s sitting in a hangar. Why? Because, they're cool, we like them, they're fun to go play in. We take all of our staff over to the 747s in the hangars and we play hide and seek. There's no business value. What we forget is working software is a liability unless it's an investment. Everything I spend is a liability. So the architect's job is to turn off everything that doesn't make money. So the problem with working with the engineer agility team as the architect is their fundamental reason d'etre, if that's how you pronounce that, which probably isn't, but I'm Texan, so I get away with a lot, is that working software is good. And ours is working software is sometimes good. That's what creates what we call healthy tension. What this does in the agile life cycle is it means that you have to do agility well and not what's about to happen. So the pendulum is now swinging back. We had federated and centralized. We had federated in the 90s. Now we centralized again in 2000s. Now we're federating again. We're empowering the team. And I believe what Burr said. If you're accountable, if you get the call at 2 a.m., you're going to write a lot better code. Absolutely buy that. The problem is you'll write better code based on the user, not necessarily the company. What you need in the Agile Manifesto is an Agile architecture manifesto. You need in the Scrum process, in the Agile sprint, in your Agile sprints, you need to know that you're going someplace that actually matters. If you are taking a family vacation to Hawaii, are you going to be happy if you end up in New Jersey? I like New Jersey sometimes. I've got friends there. They've got good restaurants. But I wanted to go to Hawaii. Well, agility allows us to go to New Jersey instead. Maybe we changed our minds. Great, let's go visit Grandma in New Jersey. I like that better. Except for the vast majority of our businesses don't do that. We just end up in New Jersey because we know where the hell we're going. The Agile team is talking to some business stakeholder at the very lowest levels of the company whose executive in sales or marketing or finance has no idea that you were taking us to New Jersey and wakes up in a meeting or shows up at a meeting and says, why are my teams in New Jersey? I thought they were going to Hawaii. That is the scary part about federation. Federation without bottom-up governance is going to splinter us into a million code bases, all of which are in different countries. When all we wanted to do was go to Hawaii. So what we're going to do with Agile architecture and what the ITABoK's doing with Agile architecture is building the Agile architect team and how you relate an architect and why they are essential, not to be feared, not to be hated, but why they are absolutely essential to the success in the long term of the Agile team. We look at corporate budgeting processes and how we can offset those, or the risk of those, to agility by maintaining living roadmaps. Not roadmaps for 18 months and here's where I want you to be and blah, blah, blah. But looking at roadmap nodes as technical and business capabilities that come together through joint planning between Agile teams. We want to be more microservices based. Why? Okay, we've got a good reason. This helps us with this, 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 and this. We're going to achieve 20% microservice milestone in a year. But along the way, the architects are working actually directly with the Agile teams, seeing that that happens. Now, of course, if it's microservices, they're going to go there anyway. So what if we need them not to? What happens when your developers want to go a direction in your technology roadmap that isn't important for the company? What happens right now? They go there, and then they get their hand slapped, and then they go there again, and they get their hand slapped. But there's really nothing you can do about it, because code's been written, and your business stakeholder is already saying, look, I don't care, it's in production, maybe it's not good, but I don't know what you're talking about anyway. What if we needed to be focused on master data management instead of microservices? What if we needed to be focused on single payer or another actual business outcome that had much more to do with technical capabilities related to our customer, integrating our customer portfolio in such a way that we can get a unified view of customer behavior so that we can make critical decisions about our bank? But no, we did microservices instead. And that is what the great frustration of our business is just because it's cool doesn't mean we need it. I like airplanes, I like big airplanes, but we're a bank, we don't need one. To do this, what you do is you represent architecture at every level of agility. You represent it at the enterprise level, you represent it at the solution level, and you represent it at the change level. But you do so in a proactive way, meaning architects need to be building stuff. Mac, I'm from Texas. I gotta wait stuff. Architects need to own things. Enterprise architects fail because they forget how to own and deliver. It's the number one critique of an enterprise architecture team is they get in the way of innovation and they haven't delivered anything for 3 years. Pictures don't do it. Value delivery does. So what we have to do in agility is adapt the role of product owner at the team or pod level, depending on product level. And here's why. How many of you are working on agile projects? How many of you have product owners that are not the real product owner? They work for the product owner, the 2 degrees down. So what happens in those is product owner says, here's your priorities, here's where I want you to go, here's the backlog, blah, 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 blah. They go to a meeting 3 weeks later with their boss, who then goes to a meeting 3 weeks later with their boss, who says, what the hell, we're in New Jersey. The product owner role needs to be modified to connect with both business architecture and with the technology roadmap. Now, I'm not talking heavy roadmaps. 6 months of visibility is fine with me unless your CIO or CTO needs to hit critical milestones at the enterprise level. So there are big stuff we still got to do. All the little stuff, and we're going to change super fast and go to production tomorrow is great, but sometimes we still have to do big stuff. Remember, your executive is paid based on corporate outcomes, and corporate outcomes sometimes mean we have to change the face of Arrakis. For any Dune fans in here, right? Also, user stories are terrible. Even user experiences are terrible as an arbiter of value. User stories are roughly equivalent to, I would like to be able, but the user will be able to plug their laptop into the left corner of that wall. That does not help me build a convention center. User stories are function, what we used to call requirement level, right? They're way down in the nitty-gritty. And yet they're the only way currently we measure success. Now we might stand up and go, well, no, we've moved to themes, or we've moved to other forms of user experience stories or things of this nature that are slightly more granular. But ultimately, value has nothing to do with whether the button was over there or over there. Those are what requirements look like, right? Also, users like to build stuff they don't need because they have no idea how to build stuff. So user stories need to be on a value basis. We have to modify the product owner role so that the architect can function as the technical strategy product owner. Generally for multiple teams. You don't want to do this for itty-bitty change requests, and we'll talk about that in a second. Because what we're going to do is we're going to connect what the ITABoK does is it connects those 3 levels together to allow the enterprise lifecycle to generate the most amount of customer-driven innovation. Now you've got a number of different life cycles going on. You've got your goal setting, right? So your board tells your CEO, well, here's what you have to do this year. I need you to, you're going to grow your share price, or you're going to grow revenue, or profitability, or all these kinds of things. And they go out and they build out all these goals. At the same time, you've got all of the people in your company going, you know what would be really cool? If we had like a mobile app to sell our stuff. That is a really cheesy way of describing exactly what happens in innovation engines, which sounds so much more sophisticated and professional, doesn't it? I would recommend you use the second definition as opposed to the, hey, whatever, but the truth is what you want to be doing is capturing this innovation and then injecting those goals and those innovation ideas into the life cycle to accomplish them. Now, one of the tools I'll just mention, even though I'm not going to show it to you, that we use is the business scorecard for that. We also use business model innovation for that. And there are a lot of other interesting businessy, architecty kind of tools that allow us to do this. But let me tell you, if you're not writing your own business cases, which means you're not proposing your own ideas, you ain't gonna make it long as an architect. And your architect team is not going to be successful. That's test number 2. If I meet an architect team that hasn't written a business case in the last year, I know they're destined to be valueless. Support function of a support function. Because in every other unit in your enterprise, they have ideas about how to impact their business. Your executive likely has ideas if you work for an IT group, and it's okay. And if they don't, you might want to start thinking about how you can start reporting to another business unit. Or, quite frankly, start going to propose ideas to your executive. Start giving away. But one of the ways that I grew in my career as an architect was that I just started giving away ideas. I never ran out of them. I didn't get credit for them. Because there wasn't going to be a time where I went, damn, I just don't know what to do next. So I would write business cases and walk over to somebody that I knew would love it, and I would go, I just can't get this. Can you explain this to me? It wouldn't be a business case, of course. It would be some idea where we would catalog something, where I'd go through, and I go, I just don't understand this business model. Can you look at this? And we'd chat about it, and they'd go, can I just keep this? You know, I'll send you an email on it to help you out, just so I can tell you more about my business model, right? They're going to teach me. And I went, okay, great. This was one application in particular, but they love to take credit for your ideas because they don't know what to do with technology. And then that business owner called me up all the time. Hey, Paul, I was working on that thing. I wanted to share some more with you about we might have lunch. And you build credibility that way. So sharing ideas and then learning to prioritize them is the number 1 objective. Now again, when I said the number 1 thing it takes to be successful as an architect team is not doing as much. Getting that sold is a little harder. This is how you get that sold. Once you have a business stakeholder that loves your idea, they will want you all the time. It is very easy to get out of governance-related activities if you have a business stakeholder that says, no, our company needs this. And I want Paul on that job. But Paul has to go do these other projects. Are those projects level 1 priority that generate 9 million% ROI? No. Oh, okay, well then I want Paul on my project. So, again, I'm just reaffirming a lot of what you've heard today. But again, the pipeline and the idea and prioritization is something that you as an architect, if you're just one of you, need to own that information. Not own it in the sense that you own the pipeline, but own it in the sense of what you're going to work on. So even if your team is failing, you can succeed. I never got assigned to a project after I got the title architect. I was never assigned by someone else to a project after I got the title. The way that I did that is I picked my projects before they were projects. I pitched them if they were my idea, or I found the most critical, most business intensive, most stakeholder intensive project, and I got myself in there. Hey, I hear there's a new idea for a new online store. I did this at Dell. At DFS, actually, which is a Dell partnership. So, an architecture then, what you're going to do on these, will you inform me as I start to run out of time because I have no sense of time? I have 4 minutes and 40 minutes worth of stuff to say.
Talk fast.
10 minutes per minute. Okay. A great architecture is about value. It is not a visual design. What does that mean? This is what you call an architecture most times. If you do that in front of me, I will go, fail. Instead, you will sometimes see a design document as an architecture. It is a descriptive document. The system will do this. It will have these things. Okay, that's a little better. At least I know what you're doing. At least it's not just some freaking box. Third, we get to decision. This is called traceability, in other words. Requirements to design decision. The system needs to run in a web browser, that we call that a requirement. Nobody says why. Nobody answers that question, right? It's because Mary over in accounting wants to be able to access her file on Sunday from home. You go invest in a massive web infrastructure. Now, of course, that's a very old example because almost everything's web-based now, but still, I have seen companies invest because 1 or 2 users said they wanted access to something when no one else in the company needed it and they could have waited until Monday. And they just go spend $1 million to get Mary web access on Sundays. The value argument is the way an architecture you could, so remember, going back to our scenario, a value architecture will tell you what we get out of the design decision in terms of value. It links not requirement, but business objective to design decision. And this is still, to a certain extent, only at the solution level, at the solution architect level. But a real architecture, if you show me this is a design decision related to, in this case, primarily a TCO argument, right? Total cost of ownership, which is not my favorite value decision, but hell, it's better than nothing. You show me this, I'll call you an architect. You show me that picture, I don't know what I'll call you, but it won't be pretty. There are 5 categories of value that you can work in. These are big buckets, big buckets. There's profitability can be measured 1,000 different ways. ROI, TCO, increased margin, IRR. There's a million profit or financial measures, but the number 1 is profitability. The constituent value is about people value. Our stakeholders, my partners, they feel better. We build websites for people value, right? Our customers buy more from us if we have a good website as opposed to an ugly one. Or we want to connect our partner network into an innovation cycle with us. We want to include our customers inside of our product design process itself. Those are constituent value buckets. The one you most commonly will use is reuse, and it's probably the least of all in those 3. And the ones you probably won't play with unless you're either in government or very, very high in your organization are growing market size and market quality. Keep in mind, Apple made Samsung billions of dollars. Right? Apple invented the iPhone, Samsung makes billions of dollars. Why? Because Samsung has a wonderful device based on the market size, right? And market diversity. So if there had been no iPhone, somebody else would have made billions of dollars, not Samsung, possibly. The way of thinking about it. So good in an architecture is profitable, first and foremost. If you can't prove that, then go down the other categories of value and go there. But your job is why. The difference between that design document and that architecture document, the engineering document and the architecture document, is one of them answers why we did this, not just how we're going to do it. And here's the ITABoK skill set. I'm pretty much out of time, right? So here's the ITABoK skill set. Online, by the way, the ITABoK is free. It is a practicum. It is not something you're going to read at one sitting. It is available online. It is not yet currently available as a book format, but will be at some point. It is only available in English right now. And ITABoK 3 will come out at the end of December. And we'll have done, there's a whole bunch going on. It is primarily, though, a capability model to allow you to develop the capabilities you need as an architect. It is based on 5 pillars of skills. Keep in mind, it's kind of hard to read right now, sorry about that. The 5 pillars basically say, if you have capabilities in these 5 pillars, you're an architect. I don't care if you've written code. I do, because it's in one of the pillars. But you don't have to have all of them equally, but you do have to have them. So go take a look at the ITABoK. It's online, it's free, it will forever be free. We will never charge you for it. And as of June 2017, the tests will be based on the freely available version. The tests, the certification still won't be free. But the ITABoK itself will be. Okay. Otherwise, there are a whole bunch of slides in here that you're going to get when you're able to download this. I wish I would be able to speak faster, but I only get warmed up in an hour. So thank you, everybody.